The following program, The Russ Belville Show, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate to the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate any illegal activity and encourage all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers on The Russ Belville Show are their own, and The Russ Belville Show cannot be held legally responsible for their validity or reliability. Viewer discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot, and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome to the show. We made it to the weekend. It is Friday, August 30th, 2013, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. It's got to be the end of summer, but it's got to be the start of college football season. I don't know if you saw the games last night, but I was watching my own Mountain West Fresno State Bulldogs. Destruction, if you're out there, that was one hell of a game. Went to an overtime, and unfortunately, Rutgers didn't understand you have to run the Statue of Liberty play on that two-point conversion. Oh, we got so much to cover on today's show, but before we get to it, I want to give personal thanks out there to one of our fans, April, who sent us this awesome card and also sent us this awesome vaporizer. Little pen vape there with the globe on it. What model is that, Brian? Do you know the name of this design?
It actually says right there.
Oh, there it is. Dab Sticks. Well, if I would just bother to read. So thank you so much, Dab Sticks, with the extra battery and the carrying case. We really appreciate that. And what's that?
Jam Band fan sent that.
Jam Band fan. Thank you so much. Very much appreciate that. Thank you so much. We'll get to test that out later this weekend after we make a trip to one of the dispensaries. And speaking of dispensaries, today's show, man, the only thing in the news today with regard to marijuana is the reactions nationwide from both prohibitionists and reformers alike to the Department of Justice's groundbreaking memo yesterday saying they will not sue to enjoin Washington and Colorado's marijuana legalization. We'll talk about those reactions and also go behind the headlines on that to show you why the dispensaries in Washington State, and for that matter, Oregon and California to some extent, are still in danger despite this memo. Also, we got time for two stupid prohibition stories that we managed to collect over this past month of August. We'll be speaking with our old-timey radio reporter, Freddie Farrak, who will give us the news on those. And on Monday, it's our NFL fantasy draft for the 420 Radio Fantasy Football League. We got 15 team owners already signed up. There's room for 5 more. If you go to rad-r.us/420NFL, you can get involved. We've also got a post right up there at the 420radio.org main website. Click on that to get the information on how you can participate, how you could be playing for the Mark Stepnoski Trophy and the championship that we like to call the Green Bowl. That's right. We got all that coming up on today's Russ Belville Show, plus more. Join us in our chat room. Have a good time. Enjoy the weekend. And don't forget, Monday's a holiday, Labor Day, so we won't have our regular show. But at 4 p.m., we will have our live fantasy draft. Stick around.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business. You know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business. You know why they won't let us grow. simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
Everywhere you go in Washington State, things are greener than ever. Why? Because last November, Washington voters made adult recreational use of cannabis legal, which is why the High Times U.S. Cannabis Cup is coming to Seattle once again to salute Washington's historic victory. If you love cannabis, then get yourself over to the High Times U.S. Cannabis Cup on September 7th and 8th as the marijuana community gathers in force to celebrate our newfound freedom. Meet the businesses of the emerging cannabis industry. Learn about cultivation, topical oils, concentrates, edibles, and more. Sample dabs, buds, and delectable morsels of cannabis cuisine. Then rock out on Saturday night at our Smokin' Hot concert featuring Slightly Stupid and Redman. And of course on Sunday evening, we present the U.S. Cannabis Cups for the top indicas, sativas, hybrids, edibles, and concentrates of the great state of Washington. Plus, we honor professional traveler and outspoken cannabis advocate Rick Steves with the High Times Lifetime Achievement Award. Come to Fremont Studios on September 7th and 8th in Seattle for a historic celebration. Go to medcancup.com for details. Be part of the growing cannabis community.
Now it's time for your 420 Radio News for Friday, August 30th, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. Department of Justice's blessing of states' pot laws, the beginning of the end of prohibition, from NBCnews.com. The Department of Justice's decision on Thursday not to sue Washington and Colorado for permitting recreational marijuana use is being celebrated by advocates as such a huge national step for pot legalization. It's comparable to the end of prohibition. Quote, "In my lifetime, it was by far the most important change in marijuana federal policy on the federal level," said Keith Stropp, the founder and legal counsel at the nonprofit National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, or NORML. He continued, quote, "All of a sudden they have decided to let the states experiment with different levels of legalization. That's precisely what happened at the end of alcohol prohibition," end quote. Dan Riffle, director of federal policies at the Marijuana Policy Project, called the DOJ's move, which also gives immunity to 18 states in the District of Columbia where medical marijuana is permitted, unprecedented. Quote, "The biggest issue facing Colorado and Washington for the last 9 months has been what the federal government will do about the initiatives that were passed out there. And the answer that we got yesterday is nothing," end quote, he said. Next year, Oregon and Alaska are likely to see ballot-initiated marijuana votes. And in 2016, the Marijuana Policy Project is aiming to get similar measures on the ballot in 5 more states: California, Oregon, Arizona, Nevada, and Maine. Massachusetts may also see a marijuana measure in 2016, according to NORML's Stropp. U.S. Attorney, business as usual on pot in Oregon, from K2.com. The top federal prosecutor in Oregon said Thursday that new U.S. Justice Department guidance on marijuana won't require any changes in the state. U.S. Attorney Amanda Marshall said her staff reviewed marijuana prosecutions over the past 2 years and said all of the cases would have gone forward under the new federal rules. Marshall said federal prosecutors won't interfere with marijuana programs authorized by the state as long as the regulations conform to the federal priorities and the state provides staff and money to enforce the laws. State Senator Floyd Prozanski, a Eugene Democrat who chairs the Judiciary Committee, said legislative leaders were already in the process of forming a work group to study marijuana legalization even before the Justice Department announced its decision. The work group aims to craft a plan to legalize and regulate marijuana sales to adults, which lawmakers would consider referring to the 2014 ballot when they meet in February. Canadian police chiefs propose ticket system for pot. This from CBC. Canada's police chiefs have voted overwhelmingly in favor of reforming drug laws in the country. The Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, meeting in Winnipeg this week, wants officers to have the ability to ticket people found with 30 grams of marijuana or less. However, Federal Justice Minister Peter MacKay said there are no plans in the works to legalize or decriminalize marijuana. Though MacKay had no follow-up on the chief's recommendation, he said he appreciates their input. Records show vet denied right to buy gun over 1971 pot charge from the Houston Chronicle. Ron Kelly didn't do it, even if he thought he did. Kelly, who lives in Tomball, was outraged a few months ago when he failed a computerized background check required to buy a gun over a minor pot charge from 1971. At the time of the rejection, he insisted he'd been convicted of a misdemeanor, not a felony, and there was no justification for denying a right that he defended with a 20-year career in the Army. Matters took an unprecedented twist recently when, at the request of a Washington, D.C. lawyer who volunteered to help Kelly, records were found at the North Carolina courthouse where Kelly had been brought before a judge so long ago. They showed that his charge of possessing a gram or more of marijuana had been dismissed. He noted the irony of the federal government finding him fit enough to fire tanks and machine guns during his 20-year career as a soldier, but determining that as a civilian he wasn't able to buy a .22 caliber rifle at the local Walmart. He said he was humiliated and angry as he was turned away from the sales counter, but most of all, he was confused. Police. Child dies in car while father smoked pot outside, from USA Today. The father of a 3-month-old boy who died after being left in a car was believed to be smoking marijuana in front of the car while his infant son was still inside, according to court documents released Friday. Daniel Gray's son, Jameson, died Wednesday after being left in the vehicle parked at his workplace for more than an hour. Gray, age 31, was charged with manslaughter and child abuse in connection with the death, according to Phoenix police. A witness observed Gray and an employee standing outside in front of the parked car outside BT Sports Pub and assumed they were smoking marijuana, according to court documents. When investigators questioned the employee seen with Gray, the employee admitted that Gray asked him for marijuana and that both went to stand in front of the vehicle. Gray, a kitchen manager at the pub, told police he had lost track of time while checking on business there. This has been your 420 Radio News for Friday, August 30th, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. When we come back, we go behind the headlines and take a further look at the Department of Justice memo on marijuana legalization and how that still leaves the dispensaries in Washington state firmly in the crosshairs of Washington prosecutors. You're listening to The Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org. We'll be right back.
Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, home of the famous lighter leash. Herb Age Designs, get your Herb Age t-shirts and hoodies and show your pride. Herb Age Designs, we've got frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs. We've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com. And follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter. We'll see you at this year's Hemp Fest. Crank it up.
Jive, Mary, Grifo, Grass, Hay. Technically, it's cannabis sativa, the common name, marijuana. She has found a crutch to see her through her difficulties instead of facing up to them and coping with them. And in time, she may be ready to try something different, something better.
Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Welcome back. Time for us to go behind the headlines. It's 14 after, and today we have to worry about this Department of Justice memo. And my friend Johnny Green at the Weed Blog also had a little bit of skepticism. So many people are rejoicing about this memo, but it's important to remember this is just a memo of guidance, and the prosecutors all across the land still have plenty of leeway to go after marijuana that they determine needs to be prosecuted. And nowhere is this more important than just north of us in the state of Washington, because Washington medical marijuana dispensaries are still federal targets. The marijuana legalization movement danced a victory dance last night at the announcement by the U.S. Department of Justice of these 8 new priorities to guide the U.S. attorneys in the prosecution of state-regulated marijuana markets. Specifically, DOJ announced it would not be suing to enjoin the ballot initiatives passed by Washington and Colorado, that state-regulated markets abiding by the 8 priorities would be less likely to attract federal prosecution, and that well-run state programs, quote, may affirmatively address those priorities, end quote. Now, in Colorado, with its seed-to-sale, highly regulated program of both medical and recreational marijuana dispensaries are breathing a sigh of relief. But in the state of Washington, the responses from the U.S. attorneys, Jenny Durkin and Michael Ormsby, whose districts include the western side, Seattle and western Washington, and Spokane, the eastern side of Washington, respectively. These responses should send a shiver down the spines of medical marijuana distributors in Washington state. Here's some of the language from the memo that's relevant. Quote, "We will continue to enforce the Controlled Substances Act. We will continue our work against organized criminal organizations and their underground economy. The continued operation and proliferation of unregulated for-profit entities outside of the state's regulatory and licensing scheme is not tenable and violates both state and federal law. While our resources are limited, we will continue to enforce federal law in this arena." That's the U.S. attorneys for Washington, Jenny Durkin and Michael Ormsby, saying that the operation of unregulated for-profit entities is not tenable. Now, Washington state has no regulatory or licensing scheme for medical marijuana. Washington even lacks a state registry card system that's found in almost all the other medical marijuana states. The collection of dispensaries and co-ops and farmers markets that have proliferated in the Puget Sound area and out in the Palouse, well, they kind of operate on a wink-wink, nudge-nudge system. And this goes back to 2011, when the governor then, who was Governor Christine Gregoire, had a bill that came before her, Senate Bill 5073, that would have established a regulated medical marijuana dispensary system. She line item vetoed most of the portions that had to do with regulating a dispensary system. And her reasoning, her fear at the time, was that the involvement of the state officials trying to regulate dispensaries would then be subject to potential federal prosecution. She was afraid state workers would get busted by the feds. Ironically, that lack of state regulation now puts these businesses in greater danger than if Gregoire had signed the regulations in 2011. This frightful news for medical marijuana distributors follows previous concerns about the taxation scheme for Washington's recreational marijuana market, which will tax pot at 25% 3 times, at the cultivation level, at the wholesale level, and at the retail level. Plus, you got to add in the standard state sales tax of 6.5%. Plus, some municipalities and localities have their own sales taxes to add on top of that. But there is no taxation on the state's current medical marijuana market, although some dispensaries that are seeking legitimacy have voluntarily paid some taxes. The state marijuana consultant, Mark Kleiman, the one that we've called Washington's pot czar, has suggested that medical marijuana will have to be equally taxed in order for the recreational market to take hold, or else far cheaper medical pot will become a strong incentive for recreational users to game the system for a medical recommendation. Some state lawmakers in Washington paint an even bleaker picture. Representative Chris Hurst, a Democrat, speaking to Huffington Post, predicted last May that medical marijuana dispensaries will not survive once recreational pot shops open, anticipating that the federal government will crack down on the unlicensed, unregulated entities. He said, quote, "All you have to do is make examples of 5 or 6 people and the entire industry collapses almost immediately. You have to have something to replace it, and that's what the recreational market is," end quote. Well, if the recreational market is the replacement for medical users, they can expect to be spending $12 or more per gram retail, according to estimates from the State Liquor Control Board, which controls the marijuana market. Current prices in Washington range from $5 to $10 per gram for those patients that are patronizing the medical marijuana dispensaries and farmers markets. Patients would also be limited to purchases of an ounce or less to comport with the recreational laws. Now, medical users would still retain the rights to possess 24 ounces of marijuana and to cultivate 15 plants or collectively cultivate 45 plants. So there will still be some incentive to get medical. And that will still exist for the recreational users, especially since Washingtonians, unlike Coloradoans, have no right to grow plants for their own personal use. So, take it with a grain of salt, people. We may not be as legal as we'd like to be yet. And until I see marijuana descheduled from the federal schedule, I'm holding my breath.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
Have you considered medical marijuana? Double-blind, peer-reviewed studies have found cannabinoid therapies to be successful in treating the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, brain cancer, chronic pain, diabetes mellitus, dystonia, fibromyalgia, GI disorders, hepatitis C, HIV/AIDS, hypertension, incontinence, MRSA, multiple sclerosis, osteoporosis, pruritus, rheumatoid arthritis, sleep apnea, and Tourette's syndrome, as well as anecdotal evidence in suggesting relief from anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress, plus reduction in the need for narcotic painkillers. Side effects from medical marijuana can include euphoria, relaxation, anxiety, panic reaction, paranoia, tachycardia, dry eyes, dry mouth, concentration and reaction time impairments, appetite increase, and in some U.S. states, arrest and incarceration. But medical marijuana is non-toxic and cannot cause overdose. Medical marijuana, it's not for everyone, but ask your doctor if medical marijuana may be right for you.
Bomb, bomb, bomb.
What's happening, cool cats? This is Big Daddy, and I want you to cruise on over to the Funky Roller Rink. We'll be grooving all night long. Doors open at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, every Thursday night, right here on RadicalRuss.com.
Funky-licious.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Rockin' Friday, featuring rock, metal, and the hard edge of alternative country. You can get downloads and more information about all our Daily Toker Tunes by visiting music.radicalruss.com. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, it is time to rock, and our good friend Herb Thrasher is on the line. How you doing, Herb?
Oh, man, doing great. Got some great news this week through the Department of Justice, and like you, just kind of waiting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, and I'm working on not as much sleep as I normally should because college football started yesterday, and it went till like midnight 30 out here on the Pacific Coast. Did you see some of those games yesterday?
Man, I posted, I couldn't believe that a start of a season, a first game of the season could be this good. And it was. I did see Ole Miss versus Vanderbilt, which is an SEC matchup, and both teams were just solid. It was like mid-form fashion. I mean, just punching, going back and forth. And as you said, ended late night with a score of something like 42-38. It was just crazy. Good stuff.
Yeah, you had that one. You had Utah State, Utah that went down to like 39-35. They went back and forth, Pac-12 versus Mountain West. And let's see, Pac-12 Mountain West, Hawaii versus USC was a late game. And then last night, our good friend Destruction, his Fresno State Bulldogs pulled off an overtime win, 52-51. That's the one that went until 12:30. We had such a great time watching college football, and we'll be watching it tonight and tomorrow night. Saturday night, my Boise State Broncos are on ESPN, 7 p.m. Pacific. We're going to have a big party here, Herb. You're certainly invited.
Yeah, we're definitely in football season now, and we'll definitely tonight on Earth Thrasher Flower Hour at 9 p.m. Western. We'll talk sports, man, and we'll definitely get more details into some of these scores and some of these games. I know that Steve Spurrier, South Carolina Gamecocks, played last night too, so we'll look at a lot of the games that happened on Thursday night and talk about some of the matchups on Saturday and some of the fun things that we look forward to in the season. And we'll also give an update on our fantasy football league. So hopefully you guys have already got in on that. You've already made up a team name and signed up. And if not, there's still time. We still have a few spaces left.
Yeah. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the next half hour. But also, we are, right in the middle of festival season. Of course, we had Seattle Hemp Fest a couple weekends ago. This weekend, there's a festival in Astoria. Next weekend, the Seattle Cannabis Cup and the Portland Hemp Stock and the International Cannabis and Hemp Expo in the Bay Area. The following weekend, the Boston Freedom Rally. Let's talk a little bit about Astoria. What do you know about this Hemp Fest up in Astoria?
Well, they're trying to get it off the ground. It was supposed to start it last year. I think they gathered into a little bit of problems, but this year is going on so far great. Saturday night's headliner is Los Marijuanos, and you guys, hopefully, if you've been in the cannabis community more than a day, you've heard of these guys and know what they do and what they rock about, and which is cannabis. And so they're going to be on Saturday night, and then Sunday night is supposedly the Roseland Hunters are going to be headlining that show, and it's all day vendors and speakers on Saturday and Sunday. And some other artists that are supposed to be playing is Cashflow. He's a hip-hop artist, and Rianne Phillips, Los Marijuanos, Mr. C in Caspa, and just a lot of other artists. I know this is going to be at the Clatsop County Fairgrounds in Wahluska Loop, Astoria. So, and it's a 97103. So you guys look that up. It's Astoria Dam or something like that. They kind of mix the Amsterdam and the Astoria. So look that up. Look up the festival. And you guys who are definitely close to the coast around there, man, go support this and let's get this off the ground. If this is a first-year festival, they're going to need people to support it so we can get this going, because Oregon is going to be in a huge fight next year for 2014 legalizing, and we need all the events we could have next year for this run. So you guys go support them. Support Los Marijuanos. I know we have a tune coming up right now, Time to Get High by these guys. They're from Vegas, and as I said, they're hemp hop rockers, and they support all the Hemp Fest. They've been doing this for a long time. You guys go out there, keep supporting the community. Join us tonight at 8 p.m. Western time for Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Keep supporting 420radio.org, and see you guys later. Turn it up, folks. Be safe.
This is the rock version of the Los Marijuanos hit, Time to Get High. I think that's a good idea, Brian. Let's do it.
It's time to get high. It's time to get high. It's time to get high. Roll up the spliff, I shoot the gift. Like cannabis sativa, I uplift. Get the freestyle, and when I get the smoking, if it's true skunk, then homie, I'm choking. I pass it on like Cheech and Chong. Now I take a hit from the bong, like Cypress Hill. So what's the deal, homie? Chill. Los marihuanos come real. So recognize, realize, legalize, and keep your eyes on the prize so you can keep on smoking them trees. Take a big hit to drop you on your knees. True G's, recognize the flame from the rag. Roll up the buds with the orange zigzag. I cannot lie, I wanna fly, I wanna fly. I think it's time to get high. 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 What? Or should I say blaze? I got the true Buddha to put you in the day.
Yeah, I watch MTV all the time. They have the Rock Against Drug commercials, that whole campaign. These guys have, slid into fucking school buses and killed 20 children, you know. Rather than a facial license, they made a public service announcement. Yeah, no shit. Yeah. I love these guys that is hello, listen, don't get caught with drugs or you'll have to do a commercial just like this one. I think I found the message. The message is don't get caught. Rock Against Drugs. What a fucking name. Somebody was high when they came up with this title. Yeah. It's like Christians Against Christ. Rock created drugs. What are they talking about? They go together, folks.
Almost busted in Laredo, but for reasons that I'd rather not disclose.
I smoke pot, and I like it a lot. Hi, this is Willie Nelson. I learned a long time ago that marijuana is a lot safer to use than alcohol. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana by adults. It's time we stopped arresting and started respecting responsible marijuana smokers in America. And to learn what you can do to help, please contact NORML at www.norml.org or call toll-free at 888-67-NORMAL.
The show was long and we were just sitting there, and we'd come to play and not just for the ride.
Stupid Prohibition Stories.
As a public service, the Russ Belville Show reminds you that smoking marijuana does not make one stupid. However, some stupid people do smoke marijuana, and Prohibition is always waiting for another victim. Learn your lesson from today's Stupid Prohibition Stories.
With your Stupid Prohibition Stories, I'm old-timey 1920s radio reporter Freddie Farrock. This just in from CBS News. Pot shot. Man used arrow aiming to launch marijuana into jail. A man is accused of trying to get marijuana into a Washington state jail by attaching it to an arrow he shot onto the roof. A Whatcom County Sheriff's employee saw the man step out of his pickup truck Tuesday morning and use a bow to launch the arrow toward the jail's second-floor recreational area, but it missed its target. Sheriff Bill Elfo says the man, identified as 36-year-old David Wayne Jordan, was arrested for investigation of introducing contraband into the jail, resisting arrest, and obstructing law enforcement. The sheriff says Jordan told deputies he had been aiming at a squirrel, but he couldn't explain why he needed to attach marijuana to the arrow to go squirrel hunting. Also, this just in from the San Jose Mercury News. Tailgating of deputy leads to bust for Eureka marijuana grow. A traffic stop of a man who was allegedly tailgating a Humboldt County sheriff's officer led to the discovery of an illegal marijuana grow site allegedly run by the driver. The deputy was driving a marked patrol truck southbound on U.S. Highway 101 near Eureka when a pickup truck came up behind him in the fast lane. It remained behind him, following, in the deputy's opinion, too closely. The deputy pulled into the slow lane and the truck passed him at an estimated 80 miles an hour in a 65-mile-per-hour zone. The deputy caught up with the truck and pulled it over. The driver and his two passengers were asked to step out of the truck. A search of the vehicle turned up a bag with about 1 pound of marijuana bud, paperwork indicating marijuana sales, and about $14,500 in cash. A search warrant was obtained for a Eureka address found on other papers in the car. At that home, deputies seized 497 growing marijuana plants, ranging from 3 inches to 4 feet in height, along with approximately 29 pounds of dried marijuana bud. With your stupid prohibition stories, I'm your old-timey 1920s radio reporter, Freddie Farrock. Okay, let's see if we can make this into a learnable, teachable moment.
That's what we try to do here.
Let's go with the last story first.
Okay.
Police truck, marked police truck, is driving down the road. And you're going to creep up on it. I'm sorry, you're going to speed up on it at 80 miles an hour. And then you're going to blaze right on past it when you got weed in your car?
That's a good pun there, Blaze, right on that.
And $14,000 in your car.
And paperwork that shows where there's more marijuana to be found.
I don't think that people should be busted for marijuana, but I'm not against punishing people for stupidity.
Yes.
That's just stupid.
I mean, really?
Tailgating the cop truck. Here's the other one, too. This guy shooting the arrow into the jail.
Oh, I was aiming at squirrel. I put the marijuana on there as a sedative.
Oh, my God.
I heard you were supposed to drug the arrow before you...
I don't know what to do with these people. Woo. I guess we just need to legalize it so we don't have to keep wasting jail space on them.
Yeah, brain space on them.
There you go. There's your stupid prohibition stories. And now, the important story of the day. That's right. Our NFL Fantasy Football League is gearing up here. 420 Radio NFL Fantasy Football.
Are you ready for some football?
We've been doing this since 2011, and in the first year, 2011, the Pigskin Potheads actually won the league. And then in our second year last year, Rolla J won the season. He was the best team of the season. But then he lost in the playoffs to Rio. I think it was Rio that won it, with the Port City Mudbugs. I think that was his team.
Yeah.
But this year we've got a new league started. Last year we had 12 teams. This year we've got 15 teams already with the possibility of up to 20. So we got 5 slots left. And if you're interested, then you can go to 420 Radio. And up on our main page, we got a post right now with this graphic you're seeing in the background here, the Pigskin Potheads graphic, the greatest show on grass. And we will be having our live draft this Monday, Labor Day, at 4 o'clock. Now, be aware, we won't have a regular episode of the Russ Belville Show at 3 because Monday is Labor Day. It's a holiday, and we don't do shows on holidays. But since it is the holiday, it's the perfect time for people to have the day off to be able to participate in our live draft. So it'll be 4 p.m. Pacific time. That's 7 p.m. Eastern. And you want to log on now and check your computer and make sure that it'll be able to handle the software for the draft. It should. Most modern computers will. But, check just in case.
If you're running XP, you might need to find somebody else's computer.
Yeah. We've got links up on the 420 Radio page that will help explain this to you. Basically, we're going to have 20 teams in 2 divisions. The 2 divisions will be the Potheads division and the Stoners division. Ooh. But interestingly, the Pigskin Potheads are in the Stoners division, and the Austin Stoners are in the Potheads division.
Which division are the Rip City Chumers in?
I'll have to look it up. I didn't check. But we'll have the 2 divisions, and we'll have up to 20 managers. The online draft will be on Labor Day at 4 p.m. There is a link on our page on how to draft. If you don't know how to play fantasy football, there's help up there as well. And if you're in the Portland area, you can come right here to 420 Radio Studios, Rolla J Studios, right here at 3608 Northeast 75th Avenue, right here in Portland. We're near the corner of Northeast Fremont and Sandy. We'll have our bar running, so we'll have all sorts of drinks. We'll have all sorts of smoke and vape and food and snacks, and you can use the bandwidth on our network. Bring your computer, and you can draft your team along with the rest of us. We'll be covering that draft live right here on 420 Radio, so you can, if you're not a part of the league but you just want to see what's going on, tune in on Monday, and we'll be drafting all the players.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. Now, we'll be competing week to week through the first 13 weeks of the NFL season, followed by our 8-team fantasy playoffs that will take place on the 14th, 15th, and 16th week. We don't play on the 17th week because in the NFL that last week, a lot of teams are resting their best players for the playoffs, and it's not really fair. Now, the winner of our regular season winner after 13 weeks will receive consolation prizes that include 420 Radio pins and stickers and some merchandise from Herb Age Designs. And by the way, if you check out my Facebook page, Radical Russ on Facebook, Adam Hand has posted pictures of the new the new Russ Belville Show pin.
Very nice.
If you saw the 420 Radio pin, it's kind of square 1-inch pin. The Russ Belville Show pin is custom cut. It's cut around the logo, so it looks even cooler. It's got some sparkly silver in it. It looks really great. All of these pins and stickers and posters are all available right now at our 420 Radio shop. If you go to 420radio.org/shop, you can find these things. You can buy them online and get those pins now. They're on sale right now for $10, but after Labor Day, the pins go back up to the regular price of $15. And thanks to Rolla J and who else bought a pin just recently? Was it Jam Band Fan? Not sure.
Yep.
Somebody bought a pin, but we thank you for your orders, and we shipped those out very recently here. Then, after the playoffs, the winner of the playoffs, the winner of our championship game, which, by the way, our championship game is called the Green Bowl. Right?
Appropriately.
Yeah, you deserve the Green Bowl, right? So it'll be the Green Bowl, and the winner doesn't get the Lombardi trophy. The winner of our league gets the Stepnoski trophy. Now, if you don't know who Mark Stepnoski is, go Google Mark Stepnoski, Stepnoski. He was a all-pro offensive lineman for the Dallas Cowboys. I think he was named to like the all-decade team for the 90s, was perennial All-Pro, won 2 or 3 Super Bowls, I think, with the Cowboys. He was also the head of Texas Normal. That's right, and he retired from the NFL. He then became a marijuana activist and spoke out for the legalization of marijuana and was actually the executive director of Texas Normal for a time. So we decided to name our championship trophy after Mark Stepnoski. And like the Stanley Cup, we are going to etch the name of the winner every year on this trophy and send it to that year's winner. And then at the end of the year, they'll send it back and we'll send it to the next winner and so on. So it'll be like the Stanley Cup. For a year, you'll be able to keep this trophy, the Stepnoski trophy, up on your mantle or wherever else you would like to display it. Now, one other very important, and we'll also have some other prizes as well. Have yet to determine what exactly all those prizes will be. Who knows? Maybe it'll be one of these DAP sticks. Who knows? And then the most important thing you need to know is that the 420 Radio League, my team, the Pigskin Potheads, this team here, the team that represents 420 Radio,
exclusive,
is made up only of players who violated the NFL's substance abuse policy or who have a history with drug violations from college or the off season. And this year I've expanded it a little bit. It's not just players who've had trouble with illegal drugs, but also players who have been busted for performance enhancing drugs like steroids and testosterone and so on. There is a list of 68 of these players that I've got posted up at 420 Radio. You can't draft those players. They can only be players on the Pigskin Pothead. So make sure you check that out. Don't draft those players like Michael Vick.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show.
So we will see you on Monday at 4 o'clock for our live online draft. Check out 420radio.org.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
If you're an adult who enjoys a good beer, there's a similar product you might want to know about. One without all the calories and serious health problems. Less toxic so it doesn't cause hangovers or overdose deaths, and it's not linked to violence or reckless behavior. Marijuana. Less harmful than alcohol, and time to treat it that way. For more information, visit marijuanaissafer.org.
This is a banana. This is a cat. This is fire. This is harmless and actually helpful to some people. Don't believe everything you hear. The fact is that every major health organization rejects smoked marijuana. Now that the smoke is cleared, discover truecompassion.org.
Respect the law, but know your rights. And share if you can.
Ask me any question, I'm gonna plead the fifth. Unless you asking me if I wanna smoke a spliff, then I'll be coming over. I'm gonna take a lift. You know I leave you feeling like you got the touch of the gift.
Yeah, this is Brian the Red, and you're listening to 420radio.org. So get a little irie.
baba boom, baby da boom, ding 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 ding, bidi baba boom, baby da boom, ding 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 ding, bidi baba boom, ding 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 ding, bidi baba boom, low da boom.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
Of course, the news everyone is talking about today and probably for the rest of the weekend is this great news about the memo that has come out from the Department of Justice saying that they will not sue over the state marijuana programs in Washington and Colorado, and by extension, saying that they have new guidelines, 8 new guidelines to determine whether prosecutors in states that have marijuana programs, whether they're recreational or medical, these 8 new guidelines should determine whether or not these prosecutors are going to get involved in prosecuting these state-run medical marijuana operations. And it's great news. I don't mean to diminish what an amazing landmark this is in our marijuana policies in this country, but I'm still skeptical. I remember how excited we all were in 2009 when the Ogden memo came out. And the Ogden memo, if you don't remember, was the one that said, so long as the state medical marijuana operations were in clear and unambiguous compliance with state law, that wouldn't be a priority for federal prosecution. And yet, we saw all sorts of dispensaries that were in clear and unambiguous compliance with their state law being raided. We saw these raids in Michigan and in Montana and Oregon, Nevada, Washington, and California. So I am still a little bit skeptical as to what the true meaning of this memo will be and as to how much it will protect the marijuana operations in the state. In one case, I can kind of see it as sort of a setup or a trap. You know, when they say they're going to leave alone these marijuana operations that are operating under state law, it's really easy to look to Washington and California, where there is very little in the way of state law, and to predict that the feds are going to continue to raid in the states of California and Washington. If there's no state law to follow, how can you possibly be in compliance with it? And it also leads me to wonder if really any state can create a system that would be able to successfully navigate to the U.S. Attorney's judgment these 8 points. Let me remind you what these 8 points are that they're saying. They say, so long as the state regulations address these 8 points, they're not likely to be busted. Here's the 8 points. Prevent distribution of marijuana to minors. Well, how long is it going to be before, they catch some kid with some weed and they determine that weed came from a state pot store or came from a state medical marijuana dispensary and use that as the excuse to go in with the guns drawn and raid that particular dispensary? We know that no matter how tightly you regulate marijuana, some kid is going to get a hold of some. Now, regulating it and checking these kids for IDs may reduce how many kids get a hold of it, but it's never going to stop them. I mean, alcohol is illegal till age 21, but plenty of kids are able to get someone to buy them some alcohol or are able to find some alcohol or steal it from somewhere. So the Department of Justice isn't saying that if these dispensary systems and laws reduce youth access, they say prevent youth access. And I don't know that prevention is possible. I don't know that it's entirely possible, especially under what these U.S. attorneys who are used to prosecuting, whose jobs are all about busting people, how they're going to react to this. And we have to remember that while Eric Holder and the Department of Justice and the people at the top may feel this way, there are many U.S. attorneys across this country with a great deal of latitude as far as how and when they can prosecute. And they might not like the tone of this memo whatsoever and may seek every little exception they can find to justify their continued prosecutions. Another one of the points is to prevent revenue from the sale of marijuana going to criminal enterprises, gangs, and cartels, which works fine in one of these state-run situations. But again, Washington State, California, will Harborside still be considered a criminal enterprise? They're also asking us to prevent the diversion of marijuana from states where it is legal under state law in some form to other states. It is going to be impossible to prevent the marijuana that is grown in great quantities on the West Coast that ends up selling for $1,000 a pound wholesale. It's going to be impossible to prevent that from heading east where it can get $5,000 a pound. Are we just being set up here by standards that are impossible to live by? We're supposed to prevent state-authorized marijuana activity from being used as a cover or a pretext for other illegal drugs or illegal activity. Well, okay, so some criminal comes in and decides he wants to hide his, sex trafficking or his illegal gambling or his money laundering or his meth dealing under the guise of a medical marijuana shop or under the guise of a recreational pot shop. And our whole system, all the legitimate actors have to suffer because one of these criminals might come in and try to abuse the system. Again, is it going to be possible for us to keep all the bad actors out? They ask us to prevent violence and the use of firearms in the cultivation and distribution of marijuana. And yet, many of these states are setting up security systems so strict and so onerous here that it's going to be hard to reconcile whether or not people are using firearms in addition to all of their other security measures. Preventing drug driving and other adverse public health consequences. We've already seen Project SAM call for the Department of Human Services to fund intense monitoring of the states that have passed marijuana legalization. And you can bet they are ready to jump on any increase in any public health stat as their excuse for shutting down marijuana operations. They worry about preventing the growing of marijuana on public lands, and I do think legalization is going to go a great deal toward removing that threat. And they want to ensure that people understand marijuana possession or use on federal property is still illegal, and I don't really think that's much for us to worry about. But these other 6 requirements, I can see these being broken throughout any system we create, no matter how strict it is. And then that being the excuse then for zealous U.S. attorneys to come in with the DEA, with the guns, with the shields, and start snatch and grabbing all the equipment and all the money and the seizures and all the things that we've seen from the raids so far in the history of marijuana. The other question that remains open after this DOJ memo is how it will affect other entities in the executive branch that aren't necessarily under DOJ. Now, the DEA is part of the Department of Justice, and we'll have yet to see how this affects them. But remember, the backward tactics, the backroom tactics, I should say, that the Obama administration has been using to go after these dispensary operations aren't necessarily the upfront law enforcement raids that we saw during the Bush administration. We've seen the Internal Revenue Service using the 280E segment of the tax code that was supposed to be against cocaine kingpins, using that against legitimate dispensaries like Harborside to claim they owe $2.4 million in back taxes. Will the IRS relent and finally allow some of these dispensaries that are complying with state law to be able to deduct their operating expenses like any other business? We've seen Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms restricting the sales of guns to people that are users of marijuana. Will state legal marijuana in Washington and Colorado still prevent someone from getting a federal concealed weapons permit? How about the Treasury Department, which has been counseling banks and credit industries not to work with the medical marijuana businesses? Will they relent thanks to this memo? I think that a lot of these factors, these backroom ways of foiling our marijuana industries, will still require some action from Congress. The Department of Justice and the executive branch can only do so much in calling on their prosecutors, their attorneys, to use discretion to come up with these guidelines. But until the federal law changes, until there are some of these bills that people like Jared Polis and Steve Cohen and Representative Blumenauer have introduced in the House to allow for banking services for these businesses, to allow them to deduct things on their taxes, until some of these laws change, I can see zealous federal prosecutors giving the green light for these other agencies to make it as hard as possible to operate a successful marijuana business, and then use the failures of these underfunded, cash-only businesses to point at and say, see, legalization doesn't work. Make them cash-only, make them so that they can't have any armored car services, and then when they get robbed, say, see, violence and robbery and crime. And as I pointed out earlier today in the Behind the Headlines segment, can Washington's medical marijuana program even survive this? It was already under attack because of the disparate taxation, because the recreational market will be taxed at 25% plus 25% plus 25% plus 6.5% plus some other local percent, where recreational marijuana may sell from anywhere from $360 to $480 an ounce. And then alongside that will be an unregulated, untaxed medical system where you can get weed for $150 an ounce. As the U.S. attorneys for Washington State already wrote, that is untenable. That cannot stand. This will require medical marijuana to become more and more like recreational marijuana. And this is exactly what the No on I-502 people warned about. But it's not the fault of recreational marijuana. It's the fault of medical marijuana carving out these exceptions to people and not trying to carve them out for all of us. Now that we've got marijuana legalization for all of us, the medical people are going to have to give up some of these exclusive rights that they've had. At least that's the way it looks. That's the direction it looks to be going in Washington State. And also in Washington State, the personal user of marijuana is not allowed to grow their own cannabis. This is a big difference from Washington State, or from Colorado, excuse me. In Colorado, you're allowed to grow up to 6 plants, 3 mature plants for your own use. How much will the growing of personal plants in Colorado lead the Department of Justice and some of these attorneys to want to step in? Because a little known part of Amendment 64 says that yes, you can grow 6 plants, and yes, you can possess an ounce outside of your home, but at your grow site, you can possess all the proceeds of all your harvests from all time. Technically speaking, I could have 200 pounds of marijuana in my house and turn to the cop and say, well, officer, that 200 pounds is the proceeds of my 3 mature plants over the past X number of cycles. I grow really big plants. And they wouldn't be able to do a thing about it. And will this ability to grow lots and lots of marijuana, which will inevitably make its way to Wyoming and Kansas and Nebraska and places eastward, will that lead the feds to say, aha, see, we can't let you legalize marijuana because you can't control it? This is a very, very important time in the history of marijuana reform, and we are going to have to mind our P's and Q's. We are going to have to cross the T's and dot the I's and make sure that we are following our laws, that we are trying our best to maintain those 8 federal priorities, lest they use our own eagerness, our own exuberance for marijuana legalization, and the resulting chaos and craziness, if we don't keep control of it, as an excuse to shut us down, as an excuse to say, see, we gave you a shot, and see, it didn't work. So be careful, my friends. That's all the time we got for today.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
Have yourselves a great weekend. Enjoy college football's kickoff this weekend. I'm sure I will. For Brian the Red, I'm Radical Russ. We'll see you at the Monday Draft, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, right here at 420radio.org. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
Everywhere you go in Washington,